passport to this computer. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jana Walter-Smith, Director of Interstate Compliance and Member Outreach here at the State Authorization Network, or SAN. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Brianne Ostoich with Ames Community College, and Ames is located in Greeley, Colorado. Ames is a 2025 recipient of the SANsational Award in the category of Compliance Innovations. And compliance innovation denotes any practice or procedure or institutional policy or tool or even a compliance team that is inventive or novel and helps to manage compliance processes and practices. So Ames project was titled Ames All In on Accessibility, a college-wide digital accessibility initiative. And this was their winning project for 2025. But before I get into the details on the Ames project, I do want to talk to you a little bit about the SANsational Awards and how they came to be. So these awards were born in 2025, if you will, as an annual award to recognize outstanding efforts by sustaining members, institutions, organizations, and the like, when they have developed high quality solutions to these challenging distance education compliance issues that we face every day. So now SAN applauds and celebrates the creativity and the vision that these organizations show when they address some of these issues. The projects that we celebrate and highlight really underscore the fact that these institutions, these organizations understand the state and federal regulatory requirements that these institutions, these organizations have conceptualized and put into process or into practice on their respective campuses, processes that mobilize their campus, their communications when developing procedures that are designed to support our learners. So it is without further ado that I introduce our colleague, Brianne Ostoich. Brianne?
Thank you, Jana. I'm going to
Of
share my
course.
screen here and hope for the best. We look good?
It's coming. There it is.
Okay,
You're there.
perfect. Well, thank you again, Jana. And just to reintroduce myself, I'm Brianne Ostoich, Director of Accreditation and Compliance at Ames Community College. And I am certainly honored to share our project, Ames All In on Accessibility, a college-wide initiative that transforms digital accessibility compliance into a culture of inclusion. This project has been one of the most collaborative and meaningful efforts I've been a part of in my career. I do want to share a little more about Ames Community College so you can get a sense of who we are and why this framework works for us and might work for you. We were founded in 1967 and have grown to 4 campuses across Northern Colorado. We offer more than 200 degrees and certificates. And our 2024-2027 strategic plan centers on streamlining student and employee experiences while extending opportunities and creating innovative, flexible learning and work environments. Accessibility fits perfectly within these pillars. It's about opportunity, belonging, and removing barriers for everyone. As we get started, I do want to make my accessibility commitment to you. These slides have been designed with accessibility in mind, following best practices to ensure an inclusive experience. I've used a slide template that is accessible. I have used accessible formatting, including alternative text for images. And I've shared this presentation with SAN in a non-PDF format so that it can be downloaded and more easily customized by each user. And of course, I ran this presentation through accessibility checkers and I fixed any errors that were found. In 2023, we began preparing for Colorado's House Bill 21-1110 and the Department of Justice's Title II rule. Both of these are major accessibility mandates. We quickly realized that that compliance alone wasn't enough. What we needed was a coordinated and sustainable approach that engaged every department and every person on campus. This wasn't just about meeting a law. It was about living our values of inclusiveness and equity and professional respect. The solution for us was Ames All In on accessibility. In January 2024, we launched this initiative, a college-wide initiative built on collaboration, governance, and inclusion. It's fully integrated into our strategic plan under line item 25, which gives it visibility and accountability. Our digital accessibility task force includes representatives from across every major division at the college, working together with one shared goal: accessibility for all. I'd like to share some of the key components that make this framework a success. First of all, the Digital Accessibility Task Force itself has representatives from every division across the college. This was paramount to its success. There are 4 strategic pillars that our framework is grounded by: awareness and training, which builds understanding and confidence; governance, which clarifies ownership and accountability; policy, procedure, and remediation. Policy, procedure, and process, which addresses consistency and clarity; and remediation and mitigation, which addresses existing barriers. Supporting all of this is our Digital Accessibility Hub, something I'm really excited and proud of. A centralized resource with checklists, how-to guides, and training for all employees and students. It's practical, easy to use, and built to empower. You might be wondering what our timeline looked like and what our development process was. I can share with you that our progress certainly did not happen overnight. In 2021, prior to any legislative knowledge, we started offering WebAIM training to build foundational skills. I have to say we were a bit ahead of the curve on this one, and probably a little bit too early for the culture of digital accessibility at our college. Some areas of the college made this training mandatory, others made it voluntary. And one of the things that we learned was that for many of us, we spent roughly 10 hours in the training and became certified, but we didn't have a way to put that training directly into practice, and so we lost many of the skills. However, by January 2024, our task force had officially launched. We had mapped timelines, ownership, and deliverables, and things were aligning. By mid-2025, we rolled out the Accessibility Hub and our planning tools, which met our state of Colorado's July 1st deadline to have an official accessibility plan. Through this timeline, we established subgroups for training, policy, technical remediation, and communication, each with clear deliverables and cabinet oversight. And again, many of those pieces were part of our official plan required by the state of Colorado. And by 2026, this work will evolve from our task force into a standing digital accessibility committee, which will ensure ongoing accountability and engagement. In terms of other supports, we've taken on the view of individual ownership. This model has really worked well for our college and aligns with our values. And we have had the reallocation of some resources, and we have hired one contingent full-time position to support this work, specifically in academic affairs. What's innovative about this project is that we built compliance through community. That's one of the things I'm very excited about. Instead of mandating compliance from the top down, we invited every area to take ownership. As Director of Accreditation and Compliance, I don't like to use a stick. I like to use a glitter-covered carrot. And so that's very much woven throughout this process. Accessibility has become a shared value, not a checklist. And through this, we've created sustainable systems, embedded accountability, and built something that truly reflects who we are as a college. This ensures that this work remains strategic and a priority. To make this initiative effective, communication has been key. We made sure every resource uses plain language, inclusive examples, and accessible design. One thing about the WCAG 2.1 2A requirements is that they can be overwhelming and daunting. and really hard to communicate to other folks. Our hub includes step-by-step guides and accessible checklists for Google, Microsoft, and PDFs, along with synchronous and asynchronous training options. Because accessibility isn't about perfection, it's about progress and participation. Another key has been robust and regularly scheduled trainings and drop-in sessions. And the best part is that this model is scalable and replicable for any college. As you reflect on whether or not you might be able to implement a framework like this at your college, I think it's important to understand the numbers and maybe some of the lessons that we've learned. So I'm going to take a look with you at summer 2024, fall 2024, and spring 2025. And when we look at this data, it's humbling. There are nearly 500,000 documents and over 150,000 issues with those documents that need remediation. However, this is powerful because these numbers remind us why this work is so important. And mind you, this is just to catch up. This is just to get our course shells on our website and our both internal and external facing documents compliant with WCAG 2.12a. The lesson that we're learning is that accessibility isn't just about perfection, it's about shared progress and sustainable systems. And it's about creating accessible documents and touch points from the get-go. Our hope is that once we've caught up on our remediation, we will then be able to shift to only worrying about creating accessible documents from the beginning so that we're not in the position where we have to remediate documents retroactively. And so I would encourage you as you begin this work, because this is a federal guideline, and so it will impact all, if not most all, institutions across the US, to start early and plan for scale. The volume of content at most institutions is going to require long-term systems thinking. As I mentioned, perfection isn't possible, but progress is. Accessibility is absolutely about continuous improvement. And if you're type A, it might bother you that it's nearly impossible to be at 100% compliant because things are changing so quickly and documents are being added. And so I would just encourage you to embrace progress while aiming for perfection. I would also share from our experience that ownership fosters greater impact than mandates. This certainly has been key in terms of collaborating across divisions to create a lasting culture change. And by all means, celebrate your momentum. This work will never stop. This work will never end. It's very important work. And engaging with folks to celebrate your momentum can absolutely be key to keeping optimism going and to inspire folks towards success. One piece that we're very focused on is designing this initiative for the long haul. We've built in monthly and quarterly check-ins through 2026. We have integrated this work into a project management software called Team Dynamics, which will expand into other processes across the college. And our goal is to make accessibility a living commitment, something woven into every process, course, and workflow at Ames. And I do want to share one of the exciting things that we just launched are 2 micro credentials or micro badges about digital accessibility, one on the faculty side and one on the staff side. So as folks are going through the different professional development opportunities for this work and taking trainings and gaining a skill set, they'll now be able to earn a micro credential for this work. At Ames, we believe that accessibility is everyone's responsibility and everyone's opportunity. This initiative reflects our values of collaboration, inclusion, and student success. Thank you so much for your time and your interest in our work and for being a part of a community that's helping make higher education more accessible for all.
Oh, Brian, that was wonderful. We appreciate you sharing that and recording this for us so that others, and you mentioned the ability to be able to replicate this process so that others can learn from what you've done. I do want to ask just a couple questions.
Sure.
So, when we think about you starting this process from beginning to end, and you said you mentioned earlier, and I acknowledge this didn't happen overnight.
No.
So, talk to me about, what was the most difficult part of this process, and how would you mitigate that in the future if you were to do this again?
You know, one of the things that comes to mind is just the general knowledge gap that the majority of our employees had, myself included, about digital accessibility and even what is WCAG 2.12a. I don't know that we could have mitigated that, but I can tell you what we did, which was a lot of professional development as a task force. We spent months researching, what does our state House bill mean? How does it impact us? What does this national regulation through Title II now mean, and how does it impact us? What are the best practices for students? Because that's what this is about at the core, right? The core is about student success. The core is about accessibility for all. And so we've spent months gathering as much professional development opportunities as we could at every layer of our college. So our cabinet, our college council, our task force, and then, the ripple effect then to other folks that aren't on those governing bodies. And so I think that was key in terms of just grasping what does WCAG 2.12a mean and how does that impact my individual work as an employee at Ames Community College. And I think too, like I mentioned, uh, the whole Monday quarterback thing. I wish we hadn't been ahead of the curve on our web aim training. That was a huge investment in a lot of
Hmm.
resources
Hmm.
that would have fit better a couple years later, but there's no way we could have known that these legislation
Crystal ball just wasn't
pieces were
working,
going to
was it?
come about. Yeah. So that piece, was a little daunting at the time and
Hmm.
would have been better timed later in life, but we certainly had no control over that.
Perfect, perfect. Well, this was wonderful. And again, we do appreciate you sharing this. I'm sure there are going to be some questions because I know other institutions are going to want to replicate this process. So again, thank you for sharing with the SAN community.
Thank you for inviting us to, and thank you again for the award.
Perfect.